Hello, I am Mudita, and welcome back to Satisfactory. This is my 1.0 playthrough where I attempt to load balance all of my factories. Why? Because for some reason, this is fun to me. In the last video, I automated 4,800 iron ingots. Today, I will take care of the Caterium and copper ingots along with the Silica and Quartz Crystal. I'm using the pure recipes, so it's time to load balance some refineries. Let me quickly go through the flowchart of the new parts of the factory we're adding. As you can see, I'm getting good use out of the pure ingot recipes for Caterium, copper, and the Quartz Crystal. Silica I don't have a great alternate recipe for, so we're using the default. One of the keys I've found to making load balancing on a larger scale a little bit easier on yourself is to make more than you need and pick numbers that work really nicely. So using a full 480 belt of Caterium ore, I can use 20 refineries and I get 240 Caterium ingots. Quartz on the other hand is a little bit different. If I were to use the full 300, they're just messy numbers to work with. However, if I only use 270, I can get nice even numbers for the machines and the output. The iron continues to flow nicely. Everything is staying green in there, so pretty happy about that. Now it's time to add some more. So we can come right on over here to our Caterium. I already have this mapped out as far as the size goes. But let's go through some blueprints. Recently I put out a video going through the blueprints I'm going to be using for my refineries. So if you want to see how I actually build these, should be one of those links at the top. But for now, I'm going to go through editing them for this factory. They look so much bigger when you can't use fly. Okay, so let's go ahead and set the recipe. I'm going to go ahead and pick the pure Caterium. I need 20 machines and they're all going to be clocked to 100%. So I can go ahead and copy and paste that across all four. And let's go ahead and paint everything Caterium. All of the belts are currently Mark 1, so I need to go through and make sure that these are all the correct speed. I find it easiest to make sure that I have the correct amount if I go backwards. So each machine needs 24 Caterium ore. So obviously this is fine being Mark 1. But out of each of these splitters, we need 3 of them. So this needs to be Mark 2. Which means the other split needs to be Mark 2. If each of those belts have 72, 2 of them are going to be 144. So that means that this belt, so that means this lift needs to be Mark 3. And now I can color everything else Caterium. I left this side empty for this reason. Now I can decide I want all of the mergers to be facing this direction. I could put them that close, but I have the space and I really don't like when I can't really see the belt at all, just in case I want to change it in the future. So technically, even if I completely overclock these would only be outputting 60 a minute, but I really just prefer if I can see at least a little bit of the belt moving around. That way, if any of them aren't completely connected or something, it's just easier to find the problem. In total, I'm going to have 240 Caterium ingots, so I can just put a Mark III in between all of these. And now I can just save this with its own name. And now instead of saving it in the directory where they have no recipes, I'm going to save it in this one. In my factories category, each individual factory will have its own subcategory so that I can switch between any of the different machines. And that way I can try to keep things somewhat organized. I went ahead and edited the other 2 blueprints in pretty much the same way. So we've got a couple other ones to go through, so I went ahead and just kind of skipped over that part, since we are going to be doing copper and quartz also. And to line this up, I just want the merger right down the center of the foundation, because then when I put a wall conveyor hole, it'll just line up nice and easy. And then on this side, I'm just getting it nice and close, just leaving it half a foundation. The plan is the ore and the water will come up on that side, the ingots will leave on that side, so I really don't need much of a gap here. So since we start with the single one, and then I believe the next one will be A, let's go to the other side. And we can lock it in place and make sure. Yep, all lined up. And this one has the input facing inward. Now I can switch to B, and since I'm inside so many different blueprints, it's easier to leave it in default and hold control to get them to snap together than leaving it in blueprint mode, because then it wants to snap to either the floor or the walls or all of the other blueprints I'm using. And then I just need to cap it off with another single and nudge it into place, and let's make sure it's lined up. Looks good. That is 10 of the refineries, so now I just need to copy that. And there's the 20 refineries. Now I just need to connect these two pieces for each set of 5. And now let's get it all connected. I just want to find the middle point between these two lifts and then make sure it is in line with these, which, there we go, 1 meter over. And now I'm going to stack it up to that same height of those two mergers. Each machine needs 24 ore, so each set of 5 needs 120. Now I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And to bring those together, I just need to come into the very center. And then I'm going to go one higher. You can use the stackable poles to go all the way up, or you can just place a temporary foundation. I really like using just temporary foundations, so I'll go up 6 meters. And now I'll just place one of these right on the edge of the splitter, and we'll create a little stubby. And now I have to remember this needs to be, if each of those two belts are 120, that means this needs to be 240, so mark 3. Get rid of that, and we can get rid of these, and do the same thing on this side. And now I can take a mark 3 belt and connect them to the center splitter. And that is 480 load balanced across 20 refineries. And I'm looking, and it looks like I needed to be 1 meter over. This is more or less the center pipe. So since you can snap to the bottom, I can lock it in place, move it over 1 meter, and let's just replace these real quick. There we go. And this is how I like to find the right spot for my floor hole. Alright, right there. Switch to the floor hole. And there we go. So mark 4. And that's how we'll bring up the ore. For the pipe work, it's really simple. I just need to change these all to mark 2 and then connect these end pieces. Let's switch back. And then at the end pieces for these right here, I'm just going to delete them and replace them with junctions so that all of the blueprints can be combined. In hindsight, I really should have changed this in the blueprint so that I didn't have to mess with nearly as much here. I was just more concerned with making sure I got all the belts right. Thankfully, this is real easy. And I'll continue that all the way down, but this is where I will bring up the water. And that's how I'll feed the 20 refineries with water. For some reason I left some of these Mark 4, but I only need Mark 3. To get these out of here, I'm just going to replace one of these walls with the conveyor wall. Go ahead and connect it right there. And that's it for the Caterium. Let's move on to the next room. We've got another very similar sized room. The reason I did it in this order is because the future plan is to expand the Caterium, because I have a feeling that's basically going to be one of the more valuable ones, especially in the endgame. So that is going to be one of the nodes that I upgrade to a Mark III and probably even Mark VI belts eventually. So I wanted that room to have the most amount of space. But let's do some copper. I like coming up to the top of the refineries to set the recipe because it's just so much easier to run across the top and copy and paste them. So let's go ahead and set it for pure copper. These machines are going to be intaking 15 and 10 and spitting out 37.5. Let's go ahead and set the copper finish as our standard and get all of these painted. Going into the machines is going to be 15, so these are all fine to be Mark 1. Same with the lift and belt connecting them. That'll only be 45. 245 belts means 90 on that one, so we need a Mark 2. And we can go ahead and just change the color to that top merger. And it's that easy for the belt work. For the mergers, I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to have them exit that way. $37.5 coming out of the machine, so Mark 1 is fine. In total, 20 of these refineries are going to be outputting 750 copper ingots. And I don't have Mark 5 yet, so I'm going to have to split this up into two, so we'll have two belts of 375, so we can just make this Mark 4. Pretty easy. Now I just need to do it to the other two versions. Now that I've got my new blueprints on the hotbar, let's go ahead and start with AB2. And we'll line this up the same way I did in the other room. So we'll give myself half a foundation here and get the merger to line up its exit right on the middle of the foundation. And now once we have that set, I like to come to this side to make sure I got the inputs right. Alright, so that one's facing that way, which is what we want. Alright, easiest way is to kind of make sure that the ladders are lined up, and they are. So there we go. That's the first 10. Just need to go grab some more parts. But since this is going to be an identical setup to the previous room, I think we can go ahead and skip that part. Let's go ahead and move on to the quartz. Chances are this room is going to be the exact same size as the previous two, But since this is the last one I have planned right now for this side, I just haven't set that wall down. But that's probably what we'll do. And I'll probably figure that out by the end of the video. I'm going to start with silica, and I need 12 constructors in total. Since I only need one of each blueprint, I'm not going to edit these ahead of time. Alright, so let's just go ahead and give it the same spacing I did in the other rooms. Yeah, let's see, make sure what I want is the input to be facing inwards, so it'll be facing the other blueprint that I'm about to put down. And if we hold down E, we can bring up the radial menu, and I can switch to B. Lock it in place. Everything looks good. Great. Let's set the recipe. All of these are going to be using the default recipe at 100%. So now I can just go ahead and copy and paste. And now we can go ahead and just recolor all of these. Each machine needs 22.5, so I can keep all of the first belts as Mark 1. But with 3 of them, that means this belt is going to need to be Mark 2. And so does this lift. And this lift. And this belt. Which also means this lift, because that's the same thing on this floor feeding these 3. So to bring these together, we can go ahead and just grab one more. Make sure it is lined up with the other ones right there. And make sure that the input's facing the correct way. There we go. With those being Mark 2, that means this one needs to be Mark 3. I believe it's 135 going into each of those sides. And we can just delete this one right here. I can go ahead and just add a floor hole right there. And that's where the rock quartz will plug in. For the output mergers, we can do the same thing and just stack up 2 on this side. Each set of 6 is going to be outputting 225, so these need to be Mark 3. And then the last output needs to be Mark 4. And that's silica. Now let's place the refineries. I just need 4 for the pure quartz. Let's go ahead and nudge these forward just a little bit. That looks good. And we can go ahead and set the pure quartz recipe. Copy and paste. And now let's change everything to purple. The input for each machine is 67.5, so I need all of these to be Mark 2. Same with the connecting belt. Which means this one needs to be Mark 3. Same with these lifts. Now I can grab a floor hole. And that's where the rock quartz is going to get plugged in. I can leave this as a Mark 1 pipe because I only need 150 water. Okay, so to find out where I'm going to place the mergers, the silica needs to come somewhere out here, and this is about as close as we can get it. Alright, so let's just have the quartz come down right here, and then I can use the dual conveyor wall hole so that these plug in there. This is going to be silica, so we can make that white. And then quartz will just plug into this one. So if I want to make that just a nice, easy, straight shot, just line it up right there. $52.5 coming out of the machine, so Mark 1 is fine. In total, it's going to have 210, so I can just use a Mark III for these connecting belts. And we can run this all the way over. Back in the Caterium room, let's go ahead and go downstairs, show you where everything's going. So right there is where I need to connect the Caterium. That's also where I need to plug up a 480 pipe. I don't know why I thought I would leave the two systems over there as separate. I'm definitely not. I'm going to combine those two, and we'll have a pipe somewhere around here for the copper. And then that very last one is where the rock quartz is going, and the water for that one. And that wall hole right there is for the silica. So let's start with the water. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover up a bit of this right here. Let's see where we can place this. Okay, so it looks like right around here. It's about far over as we're gonna go. So that means right here should be really good to line it up with. And that way it's lined up with a normal kind of snapping point. We'll make the pipe work just a little bit easier this way. So now we can snap it to this. And there we go. And now I'll just place as many, which is a whole 2. Place another one this way. I can. Okay. Probably not more than one though. Nope. Just the one. So again, we'll line it up with the normal snapping point just to make it a little bit easier in the future. And I can go ahead and paint these. I'm going to go ahead and use power shards for these. For the pure Caterium, I need 480, so at a minimum I need 2 water extractors. I'm going to overclock each one of these to 200%, and that'll give me my 480. The next one's copper. I only need 200 water for that one, so 1 water extractor is fine. And then I do need 150 for the quartz. Alright, and just so I can try to squeeze in the most in here in case I need more in the future, I'm going to snap those ones, and then we can come into in front. Just in case I need the space, just give it 2. And now I have space to place a whole nother row, and hopefully I'll have enough space for as many as I need. But for now, I really just need 4. This one is going to be for the quartz, so I only need 150. Next up is copper, and I need 200. And the last 2 are both for Caterium, 240 for each. Now that I've got these in place, let me figure out where the belts are going, and I think that should give me kind of a platform to work off of to figure out where the pipes are going to go. Well, I added a few more water extractors, and I went ahead and deleted my temporary setup for the packaged biofuel. I wanted to more or less future-proof this. I'm sure I'll need water for something else in this factory, so I just wanted to make sure I have the space, and hopefully that'll be enough, but I really do have a bit more space, especially back here if I kind of want to hide it underneath the waterfall, which I probably do. And who knows, hopefully I won't even need a bunch of these and I can kind of delete it later on. Water extractors and pretty much any of the machines that have a fluid output give you 10 meters of head lift for free. However, I found that I just have good luck if I put the very first pump horizontal on a pipe instead of trying to go up the 10 meters and then place one. In some cases, it means you're going to place one extra pump when you might have been able to get away with fewer. However, if it just works, it's worth the extra 4 megawatts of power, in my opinion. And this system needs 2 pumps anyways, so I don't think I was going to get away with only one. So, if we come up here, all of the pipes just come right up here, and then I just have another set of pumps to take it the final distance. So these just kind of snake around to the appropriate spots. So here's the Caterium, there's the copper, and there's the quartz. Doing the belting for the ore was honestly just super simple. So right here is the copper, and that's just coming from the node that's underneath this whole factory. So I already have my priority power switch set up. So this is delete me 1. This was the first one I set up for this. All right. So this is overclocked to the full 300. And then it just heads right along here and then up into the factory. Let's head over to the belt bus that's coming in from kind of the far north. These are the only 2 quartz nodes that are in the desert, and they are both coming from right up here. Since these are both normal nodes, I definitely could have done more load balancing because each of the systems need 270 ore. But I'll be honest, I was just kind of lazy when it came to this one. I went over there to set up the priority power switch, and then I just underclocked both of those miners to 270 so that I didn't have to mess with anything else. There's a good chance I'll end up upgrading those to Mark III, and then I'll end up having to do some load balancing down the line. But that is a future move problem. So the last ore that we need is the Caterium, and that's coming from over here. So right now this is definitely the busiest belt bus. So the pure Caterium is the second one in on the bottom. So what I did with that is I just sent it into a lift. So if we just go right below here, that just goes right along the ceiling of this floor over to there. So let me show you where they come in. And as you can see, I did the same thing with the quartz because they're in the middle. So easiest way to get them out is just to send them down and then back up over here. So they all come in right from underneath. So that one just was basically a straight shot all the way over, and then these just kind of came around. And then they head off into the factory. Caterium's first, and then the quartz just head off into both of their different sides, since one's silica and one's quartz. And I think the only other change that I made was over here for the quartz. I finally added the outside wall, so I've got a little bit of extra space. Like I said, I can definitely see me expanding this when I get Mark III miners, so just giving myself a little bit extra space to work with, because we've still got quite a bit of extra space for any future projects that I might want to do, smelting and all that sort of stuff. And honestly, I could always just expand farther out if I needed to. Until we get much farther, there's just going to be a lot of unfinished parts of the factory. And that's okay. As far as the outputs go, I have both the copper and the Caterium headed down the same path as the iron ingots, and those are just going to sinks that are just out of sight, but right on around the corner. The silica and quartz are just going back the other direction, up and over the other belts, and they're going into storage. So this is obviously way more silica and quartz than I need, and I do have plans for some of it for, the electronics. However, I figure I might as well just send them over to the storage and completely fill up those containers and send those into those sinks for now. And I'll leave that load balancing for future Moo. He's gonna love the decisions I made in this video. Alright, it's that time. So when I flip the switch, the copper is going to be the first one to turn on because the miner is right underneath here basically. I believe the Caterium is going to show up next, so we'll go over there and then we'll take a look at the rock quartz. That's probably already going to be up and running, but that's okay. I'd rather do them all at once. And let's start the stopwatch. there we go. I'm now sending to storage 450 silica and 210 quartz crystal. And I have 240 Caterium ingots and 750 copper ingots being sunk. Just ready to use for all my future projects. That is mission complete. Now my little storage room has concrete, silica, and quartz. Not exactly how I normally do things. Normally I would get these done first, but you know, it's just the way it works out sometimes. I did go ahead and add one more thing to the very front of the factory that I think is pretty cool. So I've got an elevator, so I can take myself up to the next floor when I build that. And oh yeah, decided to use some of my summer sloops, build myself an alien augmenter. The reason it's offset and it's on this side is I really think I want 3. I think 3 would be a great look and a good amount of extra power. It'll obviously use a good percentage of the summer sloops that are in the world, but that is alright. So the way I design this is it's actually a blueprint. So when I have some more, I can go ahead and just add on another one to the side here. Oh, it makes that fun sound every time you pull up the blueprint. So they're kind of tricky to place, but when I get some more, I'll do that. And I wanted it so that, let's see if we just delete this, I've got a space to put the conveyor belt, and I can run that right into here, which is kind of the main transportation hallway throughout the factory. So in the very late game, because I'm pretty sure I won't be able to get to that till tier 9, but then I'll be able to boost the output of these by even more, which why wouldn't I want to do, right? These things are just so cool. So I just used stairs and kind of clipped them together to make this kind of place for it to sit inside, and then that way I can walk straight onto this part of the platform and leave the belt underneath the walkway. And we can come over here and see that I'm getting a nice bonus of 2,195. So now I'm up to 24,145, which is pretty cool. And for the first time, this, oh no, but I guess it's not staying completely steady, but we're getting close. Once I get rid of all of these weird temporary factories that I've got out there, well, except for I have trains running. It's never going to be flat again. Oh well, that's okay. I am pretty happy. So now I've got pretty much all the ingots I need. Next, I'm going to add on a second floor to the factory. Well, yeah, like right there. So I'm thinking maybe I'll keep 2 floors the same color, and then as I go up, maybe I'll change. So maybe every 2 floors will be a different color of light. I'm not sure, but I think it might be good to switch it up a little bit instead of it all being exactly the same. So if you have color suggestions, leave them in the comments. But we've got plenty of time before we get to a 3rd floor. In the next video, I'm going to start making iron plates, rods, screws, and probably reinforced iron plates. So look forward to that. And thanks for watching.